You're watching BC One.
Good morning, I'm Sonia Sanger, and here's what's coming up on BC One this hour. TransLink reports normal service this morning. This after another shutdown yesterday. More on what caused it ahead. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau meets with the Queen at Buckingham Palace. This as Canadians learn about the federal government's refugee resettlement plan.
Now, BC One, BC's News 24/7.
Good morning and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. SkyTrain is up and running again this morning, although... Good afternoon and Happy New Year. Here's what's making news right now. A crash in Maple Ridge knocks out power to hundreds of customers. We'll tell you when BC Hydro expects to have service restored. And in Russia, rescuers searching for survivors of an explosion make a miracle discovery. A baby boy trapped for more than a day in the rubble.
Now, BC One, BC's News 24/7.
Good afternoon. We begin with BC's first baby of 2019.
And as our party begins to embark on this exciting opportunity, electing a new leader, my only ask to my fellow Conservatives is this: let's stay united. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Well, he's called it one of the hardest decisions of his life.
Employers should not be forcing employees to come to work if they're not ready to do so. We've been clear with employers.
Welcome to this week's Focus BC with me, Sonia Diol. Now, with British Columbia navigating its way through phase 2 of the province's restart plan for the economy.
Welcome to Focus BC. I'm Richard Zussman here at the BC Legislature. The province, the country, the world mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth. The portrait of the Queen here at the Legislature draped in black.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for AMBC this morning. How do you stop kids from damaging their reputations on social media? Well, one of our guests today says limiting their access is not the answer. Alrighty, on with the show. The Vancouver Canadians are calling it their lucky UFO, and it must have been since they won the pennant last night. That UFO even has its own following on Twitter. But are aliens really rabid fans of the Canadians? Did they come all this way just for a view from the cheap seats at Nat Bailey Stadium? Well, here to talk about this is Rob Appleton. He is the executive director at the H.R. MacMillan Space Centre. And Mike Agerbo is going to join us. He's with Blink Media. First, I want to show you folks at home the video.
Tonight, the Dybel report on the ethnic memo scandal that's already claimed 2 high-profile members of the Liberal Party, and with clear indications of spending irregularities and a breach of government code of conduct. Top Story goes right to the top to get the Premier's perspective on what went wrong.
The people of British Columbia aren't buying this government trying to change the channel from a scandal.
When you make a mistake, the right thing to do is to own up to it.
Good evening and welcome to Top Story. The Deputy Premier's report is out and there is a lot of ground to cover.
Welcome back to Afternoon. We've turned our studio into a little bit of an urban forest here.
It's a nice touch, yeah.
Yeah, a nonprofit group on a mission to transform the look of Vancouver.
They're appealing to people's green thumbs. We're joined by David Tracy, the chief arborist with Tree Keepers. David, thanks for coming in today.
You're watching BC One. This is your BC.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of Your BC. With a hot and dry summer in the forecast, fire safety is, of course, a priority for our province. In the Okanagan, West Kelowna, and the West Bank, First Nations are extending their fire agreement to protect both communities from devastating loss.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen Christie. Here are some of the stories we're following on BC One. Flooding with a new warning about a king tide, torrential rain, and wind. And one person is injured in a car fire in Vancouver, while 2 people are sent to hospital following an apartment fire in North Vancouver.
Now, BC One, BC's News, 24/7.
Bad weather continues to batter the south coast. Strong winds and a king tide have a number of communities bracing for potential flooding. Emily Lazatin has the latest.
Welcome to this special holiday episode of Focus BC. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'm Richard Zussman here at the BC Legislature. Big changes for the BC Liberals in 2022. A new leader, Kevin Falcon, and so far he has hit the ground running, getting ready to face David Eby in the 2024 election. I am joined by the BC Liberal leader, Kevin Falcon. Thank you so much for doing this.
This is a Global News special presentation.
Welcome to Global BC's Year in Review, a time when we look back on some of the news stories that stood out. And 2022 did not disappoint. It was a year of big changes in the capital when a popular premier decided to call it a day. But what looked like an easy road for one of his ministers to take over hit some speed bumps. Richard Zussman has the story from Victoria.
This is a Global News special presentation.
Thanks for joining us on this special holiday edition of Consumer Matters. I'm Ann Drua. We begin with an Air Canada passenger's luggage nightmare. After a long overseas trip, Ori Wolk's travel bag arrived completely destroyed, but even though he filled out all the paperwork to file his claim and had all the necessary documentation, he says Air Canada refused to properly compensate him.
This is a Global News special presentation.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of This is BC. We've met some fascinating people this past year. I want to reintroduce you to Brandon Raftery, who has an interesting hobby that he's turned into a side business. It helps him pass the time when he's not on stage belting out Bon Scott or Brian Johnson.
BC One, your 24-hour news source.